these days, so it's great to see all of you. My name is Alexis Squire, and I am the Deputy Director here at ServeDC, managing all of our partnerships and engagement work, and I'm happy to be with you today. I'm going to introduce some other members of our team and our partners in a moment, but I thought that we should start with a little bit of housekeeping. I know that people are just joining on, which is great. I'm happy to have you all. I just want to remind us all that we should mute our lines so that we're able to hear the presentation clearly and that you can hear the information that we will bring forth today. Good morning. Please mute our lines, please. I'm hearing a little feedback.
See that? Mute. Good for you.
Okay. Please mute our lines. Thank you so much. All right. I also want to let you know that this will be recorded. So if you wanted to go back to some information that we referenced, or you need to share this with some of your colleagues, definitely you can do so. And we will be placing it on our ServeDC website, so you can reference it there and share it as you will. We will be having a question and answer session, but we're going to leave that for the end. So we'll go through the entire presentation. However, please feel free to use the chat feature on the WebEx so that you can capture all of your questions and feedbacks, comments in real time, and then we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. And then also, last but not least, a lot of this information that we will be referencing during the presentation will come from the RFA for the Volunteer Generation Fund. That also can be found on the ServeDC website. So a lot of that information is going to be taken from there, and then we'll share additional insight or information. Okay. Again, I want to say thank you for joining us and good morning to you on behalf of Mayor Bowser and on behalf of our Chief Service Officer, Aris T. Scales. Thank you for joining us. And before we get started, I thought the most appropriate thing to do and the most appropriate gesture is to say thank you. Many of you, you and your colleagues are working around the clock to make sure that the residents of the District of Columbia are supported with essential needs during this unprecedented time. And so I just want to say, on behalf of the mayor, on behalf of Aris, our Chief Service Officer, thank you for your efforts. Thank you for going above and beyond. We know I come from the nonprofit community before coming to ServeDC, and I know that our missions we live them. So I just want to say thank you for the hard work that you are doing, especially our most vulnerable members of our community you're supporting. So I will start there, and then I will start by introducing some other fabulous members of our team that we have joining us today. The first being Jenny Kessler, who you will hear from in a brief moment, who is our National Service Director. And then you will hear from Mr. Landon Jones, who is our grants guru and is lent to us from our Mayor's Office on Community Affairs. You will hear from them. And then also helping us behind the scenes is Tyler Giles, who is our communications specialist with ServeDC. And so you will have those folks from the ServeDC side. Additionally, we are pleased and grateful to have strong partners with us, and that is the Center for Nonprofit Advancement. And representing them is their Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Glenn Ogilvie. And then also their Chief Operating Officer, who is Ms. Taylor Strange. So you will hear from all of these voices. They're not all coming from me. I didn't want to bore you guys, but we're gonna kind of tag team with one another to make sure that you receive this information. I see that someone is having trouble with audio. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, great. All right, perfect. So we'll get started. Again, thank you for joining us. We're going to give information about the Volunteer Generation Fund that is kicked off, and the mayor properly kicked it off for us. So we're very pleased that she was able to amplify this opportunity for us. This is the 5th year that we will be doing the Volunteer Generation Fund out of Serve DC. And so I'll start here with what is Serve DC? Serve DC is the Mayor's Office on Volunteerism and Partnerships, and we also serve as DC's Commission on National and Community Service. So we are dedicated to promoting service as an innovative, sustainable solution to the challenges that we face in our community, locally and nationally. We also provide oversight and support to our sub-grantees as it relates to some of our grants that we deliver. How do we do this? We do this by building partnerships with our local and national community. We create capacity with partnership organizations such as CNA and otherwise. We are thought leaders on the local and national front around volunteerism and service. And then we also provide and promote service opportunities for our community.
Serve DC also receives federal funding from the Corporation for National and Community Service, which is also known as CNCS, to support national service programs in the District of Columbia, including the Volunteer Generation Fund. And as the National Service Director, myself, Jenny Kessler, I oversee some of our national service programs. The mission of CNCS is to improve lives, strengthen communities, and foster civic participation. I hear that it's a little bit hard to hear me. The sound is coming in and out. Can folks hear me right now?
Jenny, that's better.
Is that better? Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize for that. So again, if you were not able to hear me before, Serve DC receives our federal funding from the Corporation for National and Community Service to support our national service programs in the District of Columbia, including the Volunteer Generation Fund. The mission of CNCS is to improve lives, strengthen communities, and foster civic participation through service and volunteering. Through several programs that are umbrellaed under CNCS, including AmeriCorps, Senior Corps, and the Volunteer Generation Fund, CNCS has helped to engage millions of citizens in meeting community and national challenges through service and volunteer action.
Okay, the Volunteer Generation Fund, VGF. The grants are used to develop and support community-based entities and also to recruit, manage, and support volunteers. Serve DC uses this grant. It's really special to us because we use it to recruit and retain volunteers to develop strategies to effectively address citywide priorities and challenges. And so it's really fitting that we would use this grant in this way to address what is currently our biggest challenge. Landon?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. First and foremost, thank you for taking the time over the course of the month of March and April to complete our Serve DC Volunteer Engagement Survey. What we have here is a bit of our results. So as you can see, over 50% of our nonprofit partners had to suspend their volunteer operations in light of COVID-19, as well as subsequent health and safety guidance. Naturally, 52 of our nonprofit respondents expressed a need for communication strategies and tools to effectively recruit and retain volunteers during these times, whether that be virtual volunteerism or in-person volunteerism in adherence to the stay-at-home order and those guidelines. And finally, all of our nonprofits had expressed a need to improve their service delivery, outreach, and operations. What I'll also do is share the survey with you if you'd like to take some time to complete it if you haven't done it and would like to share what your operations have been like during this time.
Great. And so as Landon shared with us, we put that survey out, and we're not particularly, surprised by the results, just because we've been keeping a strong pulse on the nonprofit community and the experiences that you've been having. And so in light of that, and in light of the results and in light of the data that we have, we developed and kind of realigned our scope for this year's 2020 Volunteer Generation Fund to really support what are, emerging needs that you're experiencing. And so we want to help our nonprofit partners and subgrantees that are awarded with resetting, reimagining, and re-engaging their volunteers, as well as securing strategies and resources to best position you to resume volunteer activities after this public health emergency, so post-recovery efforts. The estimated available amount that we are giving out this year is $75,000. No grant shall exceed $7,500 per individual award. And the project and award period will start June 15th, and then it will conclude by September 30th, 2020.
For the 2020 Volunteer Generation Fund this year, sorry about that. The eligible applicants, this application applies to single state applicants operating only in the District of Columbia. The following non-federal entities, as they are defined in 2 CFR section 200.69, that have DUNS numbers and are registered in SAM, are eligible to apply. These two are nonprofit organizations and also prior Volunteer Generation Fund grantees that have participated in capacity building trainings and workshops are eligible to apply as well. There is a list of allowable and prohibited uses of funds that you can find on the ServeDC website in the RFA. There is quite a lengthy list for what you are allowed to use your funds for this VGF grant, which we will not list out at the moment. However, if you do go to the RFA, you will be able to see a list of allowable as well as your prohibited uses of funds.
Okay, now we will take you through the grant timeline. May 4th, 2020, the RFA was released. May 18th, which is today, we're having our application overview session. May 29th, the grant will close. July 1st will be the project start date, and September 30th, the grant will close. Again, this information will be available on our ServeDC website, including this deck, so you'll have this information, but much of it is captured in the grants RFA, which is also housed on the ServeDC website. Okay, which leads us to our funding priorities. We, again, were very thoughtful about how we would prioritize our funding for this opportunity, and knowing our current landscape. We wanted to make sure that we were supporting efforts and initiatives that are supporting our residents in the most essential ways. So for this grant, those efforts or initiatives that specifically recruit, train, and engage volunteers that to position and prepare vulnerable communities to better recover from emergencies and disasters such as COVID-19, in the following focus areas would be prioritized. And those areas are, please mute your lines so that we're able to hear. Okay, those areas are mass food distribution, mass shelter, outreach and social services, housing stability and economic security, youth engagement and development, and mental health services. All right, the next thing that we will cover is our grant deliverables. Okay, the first deliverable is that your organization or your staff will participate in 3 out of 4 of ServDC's capacity building webinars. The dates are TBD. They will be recorded, and certainly you can access them there as well, but the dates will be slated for mid-June to early September. Again, they will be recorded, so you won't have, there's a scheduling conflict, we can certainly work around that, but we definitely need you to participate in 3 out of 4. The primary focus and scope of those webinars will be centered and aligned around the same capacity building around ready to recover from this public health emergency and other emergencies, making sure that your volunteer base and your staff are equipped with the tools and resources to recover from things that are out of our control. The second set of deliverables are for the sub-grantees to work with our capacity building partners, which is Center for Nonprofit Advancement, who's been working with in this capacity, no pun intended, for the last 4 years. You will work with them and they will advise you to be able to complete a final project scope, a final project budget, a final project timeline, and then also a list of products or vendors to be procured. All of this will be approved by ServDC as we work together with Center for Nonprofit Advancement. I'm going to turn this slide over, this time over to Glenn from Center for Nonprofit Advancement, their Chief Executive Officer. He's going to give a little bit more insight about their process and anything else he would like to add for us today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alexis, and good morning, everyone. My name is Glenn Ogilvie. I'm CEO at the Center for Nonprofit Advancement, and just want to say again how excited we are to be a part of this engagement. I see many of our members here. The center has been around for 40 years, providing nonprofits with capacity building support, helping organizations to collaborate with one another, advocacy support and services, and also back office administrative support, financial management, fundraising, and the like. In this particular partnership, as we have in past years for the Volunteer Generation Fund, our goal is to work hand in hand with each organization that is selected to ensure that you are able to bring forward that scope, the budget, and the timeline, and that we have vendors to respond to this unprecedented challenge that we're all faced with right now. When we talk about engaging volunteers on a regular basis under normal circumstances, we talk about recruitment and retention and keeping those volunteers engaged. Now we're doing recruitment and retention in a very different way, in this virtual way that we all have to work with. So helping us to deliver tools and create video pieces and social media engagement components and pieces to really meet people where they are, make sure that they are comfortable and understand what their volunteer initiative and service will be like, and that you're able to keep them coming back to add that additional strength to our organizations. So we will also help to develop the pre-recorded and distance learning opportunities so that what we do together will actually stay steeped in our organizations. We'll be able to build the capacity of individual team members to do that. We're looking forward to getting started. As you can see, it is a short timeline, so we know that our support with each of you hand in hand will help us to get through this new component to many of our organizations while continuing to focus on the regular day-to-day operations. I'll say again that we're really excited to work with ServDC. Aris Scales and the team there have been fantastic year over year. And of course, the Office of the Mayor that continues to innovate and help to keep us together. Look forward to talking with all of you. We'll be in touch with questions, and I'm looking forward to any additional information we're interested in at the end of this particular session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Glenn. Again, if you would just capture your questions within the chat, we will address all of them in our Q&A portion of the presentation. But thank you. We're so pleased to have Center for Nonprofit Advancement yet another year as we continue to do this powerful work. Okay. All right, so we're going to keep continuing with our deliverables for this grant. In addition to the first set that we just reviewed, we're going to be asking for subgrantees to select one of the 4 that I will go through in just a moment. Again, to speak off of what Glenn just raised, we know that this is a new landscape for volunteer engagement. And so many of these deliverables speak to our present climate and are creating and supporting you as you create new tools and resources to better engage both existing and new volunteers. So you will select one of the four, and I will go through two in this slide and two for the next slide. The first will be a volunteer engagement toolkit, which includes new guidance and resources to the public on volunteer engagement practices during COVID-19 and beyond. Again, just speaking about or speaking to rather any emergency that happens and how to recover effectively for it, and how to build this infrastructure within our volunteer engagement practices to be able to respond and also recover. Number two is a volunteer recruitment toolkit leveraging multimedia and or social media. So we see this option more as a digital opportunity or marketing materials. So it could either be a video, graphics, a digital toolkit, and this will be used to recruit and re-engage and retain volunteers. Number three is a virtual series to educate, inform existing volunteers and or new ones to share best practices and capacity building support and training to serve your constituents and really to fulfill your mission. And then number four, if you would want to use these funds to either acquire or enhance a volunteer engagement database that you are in need of. And so any tools that will help you to be able to leverage your data or leverage your pools of interest as it relates to volunteer activities. So we just named a few. They are Salesforce, Galaxy Digital, Volunteer Hub, and or Volunteer Match. There are many, but we're happy to explore any type of tool or database that will help you to better engage your volunteer base.
Okay, now moving on to the application itself. In the content of the application, complete applications must include the following elements. You must have your organization's name, your authorized representative name and signature, an executive summary, which must summarize your proposal in 2,000 words or less. And then you move down into your narrative sections. You have a program design, organizational capability, and cost effectiveness and budget adequacy. And these next slides, we will get more into the narrative sections. However, I do want to remind everybody that a detailed description of each narrative section is located in the RFA as well. So the narrative section itself, you have your program design, which you must clearly describe your approach to addressing the funding priorities, which are described above, which Alexis just described. You must demonstrate how the development of your volunteer engagement toolkit will best support and or enhance your ability to recruit and retain your volunteers. Moving next into your organizational capability, this is where you will describe your organization's capability to initiate and manage your proposed program in response to the funding priorities which we had described previously. You must also describe which external facing activation would best align with your organizational and programmatic capacity and priorities. When you do list your organizational capabilities, you must also speak to how your selection will align with the following three considerations. You must first consider your organizational or departmental strategic planning and or goals. You must also describe your staff and volunteer background, your capacity structures, and the actual staffing of your organization. You must then put down your volunteer-based needs as they are captured through assessment data. The next part of the narrative section, which is the final section, is cost effectiveness and budget adequacy. For this, you must describe how the proposed program budget appropriately reflects your program's goals and designs. And again, I just want to also reiterate that what I have just gone through is described in detail in the RFA if you need a reference or have any further questions. Moving now to the additional documents which you must also include. All of these documents are required. You must have your IRS tax exempt 501c3 designation letter, your most recent audited financial statements, your most recent Form 990, the budget for your current fiscal year, as well as a board list including affiliations, and then senior or management staff list or an organizational chart. If you do have any questions about additional documents and being able to provide them, please put your questions in the chat box. I saw one that we had earlier, so we can address those questions at the end. Moving on now, in the RFA, you will see that your application must be entered into the Zoom grant system that we have set up. On this slide, you can see that we also have the link to the Zoom grants application. However, this link is also on the cover page of your RFA, as well as on the last page of the RFA. When you get to the first page in Zoom grants, you will see that there is the applicant information that you must fill out. You can see too, with the first red arrow, if you need instructions, please click where it says instructions show hide, and that will give you an explanation of what you need to put down for this web page. And then just a reminder, at the very bottom, you must also put down your DUNS number. This is a requirement that CNCS requires of any sub-grantee. Moving on to the next tab that you will see when you're filling out your application. It's the executive summary and narratives, which we had just gone over in the previous slides. This is what it will look like when you get into Zoom grants. As you can see, there are instructions which you can show or hide. You have then your executive summary, which you can see from the first red arrow, and it will show you where it asks to summarize your proposal. That is the text box where you will be entering in your actual executive summary. The next part, you will see a program design next to this red arrow. It will ask you which focus you support, and you will just click which one that you support for your application. And this is just a snippet of what this page will look like. However, you can kind of get an idea of what you will be expected to fill in when you go into Zoom grants for your application. The remainder of the narrative sections are below program design, all on this one web page. And then the next section of the Zoom grants application are your additional documents. At the moment, we have them required. However, I do see we have several questions about what is required, what is not required. So when we go to answer these questions, hopefully we can address all of these required documents, which we are putting and that we will need for successful submission of this application.
All right. We are now at the end of our formal presentation and ready to answer some of your questions. I'm going to go through the list. I've been reviewing them. And Jenny, if you could help to address many of them. I think the first one that I am seeing is that if organizations serve clients outside of DC, Northern Virginia, and suburban Maryland, are they ineligible for the funds? Jenny, are you able to address that one?
Yes. For the VGF grant, your clients do need to be in DC. You do need to have the services that you are trying to fulfill with this grant performed in DC.
Right. And I see the next question says, our organization's office is in DC, but we work in the DMV. Could we apply for this funding for only our DC program areas? Yes. The answer to that is yes. And then the next question is, are grantees from last year eligible to apply? Yes, they are encouraged to apply. I know that you have benefited from the great partnership with Center for Nonprofit Advancement. We would love to see some of those same applicants, sub-grantees apply for this year and better position themselves to advance their mission. So yes. The next question is, we are a small organization that does not complete an audit because it is prohibitive. Does an organization have to have an audited financial statement, or will a 990 be suffice? I believe the answer to that is yes. Jenny, am I right in thinking that?
Yes, I believe a 990 should suffice.
Yes. Okay. The next question is, and feel free to keep adding questions. How do I connect with Glenn? And I see that we've already given Glenn and Erica information there. So I think we have addressed that need. Is an audit required? I think we just addressed that. We can use a recent 990. Yes, that will absolutely suffice for that. And I think that takes the next few questions. Is a program budget attachment not required? I see that we are describing our program budget, but I'm not clear on if there is also a need to have an attachment. Well, we wanted you to describe your budget, but because you will be working with Center for Nonprofit to create an approved kind of scope and budget, the description will do as opposed to a separate attachment. Are organizations that do not have formal volunteer programs eligible to apply? Is it possible to apply just for funding just volunteer engagement databases? I think the answer, I want to just confirm with Jenny, is yes. I mean, if you need a volunteer engagement database to enhance your volunteer activities, absolutely, you certainly should be, able to apply. Are there reports from previous years' applicants available to review? Reports from previous years. Now that is a question, Glenn or Jenny, do you have an answer or any insight on that?
I'm going to think that particular person is interested in proposals to review and not necessarily reports. And
Okay.
I'll ask him or her to confirm one way or the other. But no, we do not have that information to share. We would be happy to talk with that individual if there's more detail they'd like to understand on how to apply, but we do not have prior organization details to share.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, and then the next question is, can I host a volunteer recruitment drive in July, August, or September for, it moved up on me. Where did it go? Okay, for the general public with, okay. If that aligns with one of the four, so certainly you can host something either virtually, as long as it aligns with where we are in terms of our stay-at-home order. But one of those four buckets would need to be, your scope would be aligned to one of those four buckets that we described. So maybe, your toolkit, your multimedia toolkit is driving people to be able to participate in that. And I hope that I answered that question for you. Will the program be similar as last year, weekend workshops? I'm going to hand that over to Glenn.
Thank you. The program will be different from last year, which was, as we know, all in person. There will be virtual meetups by way of Zoom and one-on-one conversations and technical assistance. So a bit different than last year with this new and new focus. I want to also address, I believe it's Sante with regard to proposals and reports. So the center does have a good number of proposal writing sessions that you'd be welcome to join. If anyone wants to reach out to me for a sample proposal and a sample report based on the Common Grant application and format, I'd be happy to share that as well if that would be helpful.
Great. Great. Can I place ads in print media, i.e. Washington Post and social media? That's a great question, a great, I would say, plan. Again, just wanting to make sure that they align with the 4 buckets that we've established. I don't see why not. If that's a part of your, toolkit or something that you would like to add, yes, then I think that is acceptable. Proposals and reports. Oh, okay. I think that speaks to the previous questions. Should we be developing our volunteer engagement, keeping in mind that we may be continuing to work remotely through June through September? Program development is impacted by the pandemic and would look different now versus normal circumstances. Absolutely. I think that is in fact the design and the intent of this grant. We know that things are going to be different, even if they are not the same as they are today. We think that we should reimagine and would encourage you to do so, to have these kind of infrastructures in place so that if we are in a virtual space, you can still benefit from from your volunteer base and still be able to engage them in a meaningful way. So absolutely. If organizations intending to locate in DC and serve the DMV eligible if their service location has not been secured. Let me make sure that I understand that. So you don't have, as of yet, a location? Is that what, like a headquarters? Okay. I think we should follow up with you. I don't want to give you the wrong information, but I just want to understand your particular situation a little bit more clearly. Will it be reimbursement? Sorry if that was covered. Jenny, if you could.
No, actually, we did not cover that, but yes, this is a cost reimbursement grant.
Okay. Can I hire a videographer to make a volunteer video for our website? Yes, so you can work with Center for Nonprofit Advancement to develop your scope, your budget, and then also the list of approved vendors. And certainly, if that's something that you want to live on your website after you make that video, absolutely. Is this session recorded? Yes. The session will be recorded and can be found on the Serve DC website. Okay. A lot of people are requesting your information, Glenn, and I think you've shared it. So please feel free to share that. Do we need to limit programming to DC residents? Virtual programs offer more reach and may generate interest outside of the district. Okay, so yes, the target for this grant is district residents. If it is virtual and something that can be shared, I mean, we have no, and we would, not have any objection to that. But the intent for this for this opportunity is for our district residents. Yes. Is it permissible to aim for more than one of the 4 deliverable areas? We recommend that you aim for one. If you would like to put others in your application, we're not going to prevent you from doing that, but we would like to for you to aim for one, understanding that your narrative is going to support one versus the other based on the landscape and the design of your mission and of your staff and your available kind of goals and things of that nature. Are there any other questions that we can answer for you?
Alexis, I've gotten a couple of questions just sent directly to me.
Okay.
So the first question is, please define sub-grantee in this context. In this context, a sub-grantee just means that it's a grantee of SERVE-DC. So SERVE-DC, as we had mentioned, is the State Service Commission. So we receive funding from CNCS, and then we are allowed to then fund to sub-grantees. And that's what we mean by sub-grantee in this context. The next question that I received is, are these deliverables intended to be specific to the grantee organization's own mission, or something general to be shared in the volunteer generation community? Alexis, I think I might put that question to you. If you have
Okay. Can you share it one more time? I'm sorry, Jenny.
That's fine. So the question is, are these deliverables intended to be specific to the grantee organization's own mission, or something general to be shared in the volunteer community?
They should support your mission. So they're designed really to help you better engage your volunteer base. So they're not, the use of them will be, solely on your discretion. So they are meant and designed to enhance your volunteer experience.
Okay, the next question that I have is, can you save the application and return to it? Yes, you can. There should be an option at the bottom of your screen to save. And then when you log back in, the application will show up as long as you have saved your document. I'm just going down to make sure that we have answered any other questions that have been sent to me directly.
I see one more. Is there a possibility that other host organizations in DMV areas adjacent to DC might partner together to serve the DMV population? Not just, and I think it's social media. Social media does not respect geographic boundaries. Broader granting collaboration might be beneficial, just a thought. Okay. Definitely I think that is intuitive. For these grants, the volunteer generation grant, traditionally this is kind of like more of an in-person type. This is the first year that we're doing it a little bit more virtual because of everything that is going on, but that's something that we certainly could take into consideration as we move forward with our grant making capabilities. Do Zoom grants allow you to save? I think you addressed that one, Jenny. Do we develop a budget for the application, or does that occur to awardees during the working with the Center for Nonprofit Advancement? Yes, you're absolutely right. We would like you to describe a budget, and then you will work with the Center for Nonprofit Advancement to fine tune that budget and get it to its final state. Do applicants work with the center to develop budget and scope during the application process or after the grants have been awarded? So I think we've answered that. It's going to be after the grants are awarded. Just confirming that staff time, fringe benefits, etc., can be covered by the grant for those working on the project. Jenny, do you know, is that something that you can answer?
Yes, they can be covered by the grant.
I would very much like to talk. Okay. All right. Okay, and last but not least, what specific application components have set successful applicants apart in the past? Glenn, if you could talk about this, is a little difficult because this is a different opportunity than we've done in past years.
Sure.
But if you could speak to a little bit about that in past years, I think.
Yeah, I'll touch on that in past years and then also in general. I
Yeah.
think an applicant is able to clearly define and explain the work of their organization in a compelling way. and then to further outline the impact that the organization has and the impact that it will have after it's been awarded. We always like for organizations to be realistic in what they're suggesting they will accomplish, but very direct in the impact and the purpose. Now, I'll also say that social media and some of the other components that we'll use for this particular grant will be seen internationally, and that's a good thing. But to talk more specifically about the focus on the District of Columbia, the goals and the outcomes and the things that will be different as a result of your volunteer engagement is really what will get the attention of the reviewer and help to be a more successful proposal.
Hello, when will the grant be awarded? I'm gonna go, can you go back to that timeline, Jenny, so we can just show? And again, this will be available on our website, and we're also going to take out the timeline and put that on our website as well. Okay. So the grant, to answer your question directly, the grant will be awarded between May 29th, when the grant closes, and July 1st. And I do have a more specific date that I can share with you, but we plan to take a few weeks to do the review process, and then we will be letting our grantees know in June. When posting this webinar online, can a sample successful application also be shared? I believe that Glenn addressed that and said that he would share some applications and reports that, you know, kind of a sample that would be for your reference. No problem. Any other questions or any other things that we can address? How do we receive those reference materials? What we will do is, if we have everyone's information captured here. Once Glenn shares them with us, we can certainly send them out to everyone who RSVP'd for this webinar. Okay, what does a grant report for successful awardees entail? Good question. We are finalizing that grant report, but it will give us information that just shows your progress and your completion of those 4 deliverables. I believe there are 2 additional ones to make sure that you have met all of the goals there. But you will be working with Center for Nonprofit Advancement to make sure that those reporting tools are effectively completed. No problem. Any other questions that we can address? I think we're in good time. Again, I just want to reiterate that what I said at the top for those who didn't join at the very beginning, but I just wanted to say thank you to this group here and your colleagues, the nonprofit community, for really stepping up and really serving on the front lines as we address and mitigate the effects of COVID-19. We know that you all are going above and beyond, as some of you have had to even reimagine your own roles. And so we want to say thank you. And we hope that this grant opportunity will really help you to enhance your ability to keep and retain and recruit the volunteers that you need to fulfill your mission. Thank you so much. Oh, I see that Eris is saying excellent. Thank you to you guys. And so we hope that you continue to stay connected with us here at ServeDC, and we look forward to seeing your applications, reviewing them, and thank you for the work that you're doing on behalf of the residents of the District of Columbia. Have a great day, and we hope to be in touch. Thank you all.